Welcome to the Classroom Connection, the show that takes you inside Marion County Public Schools. I'm Kevin Christian, and on today's show, we take you inside television news, this time at the middle school level for part 2 of our special series. You'll discover why some local students are spending time at major manufacturers here in Marion County, and we focus on cross-country competition in sports this month. Up first, though, a discussion on class size. You may recall that in 2002, Florida voters approved the class size amendment, limiting the number of students per class depending on the grade level. At first, that number was district-wide, then it became school-wide, and now it's by individual class. For school districts exceeding those numbers, there is a price to pay. Deputy Superintendent Rick Lankford is the person who oversees class sizes and makes adjustments here in our district, but it's not an easy job and often involves lots of emotion from those most impacted by the decisions. Mr. Lankford, first of all, thanks for joining us.
Glad to be here.
What do you think the intent was behind class size limits?
Well, part of the intent, part of this arose from a situation in South Florida where rather than hire more teachers, they just kept building the class size. So it was not uncommon, as I understand it, for classes to be 35, 40, 45 in some places in the district or in some places in the state. And so as a result, legislators got involved and decided we need to look at somehow making sure that administrators or the school districts don't overload classes beyond what they should do.
And when the voters passed that amendment, and we're talking about an amendment to the Constitution, not just something that's written on paper somewhere, what are those class size limits as of today?
Well, the class sizes vary per grade level. In kindergarten through 3rd grade, I believe it's 18 per class. In 4th grade through 8th grade, it is 22 per class, and in 9th grade through 12th grade is 25 per class. And that is, in the middle school level, those are dependent. Some of them, for instance, a high school English class is supposed to be 25. A high school PE class could be much larger. So there are certain restrictions on which classes actually fall under class size.
And we'll talk about that in just a couple of minutes. Where do we stand compared to the numbers that you just cited?
We expect to be quite a bit over. With the budget that we were strapped with this year, we were disappointed that we had to make some tough decisions. A lot of people are wondering, well, why direct some of the cuts at the personnel? But when 85+% of your budget is personnel, you have no place else to look most of the time. So we have had to make some conscious decisions to enlarge the class sizes, and so we expect to have to pay some penalties.
Do we have an idea of how much this is going to cost us?
Not yet. The numbers went in October. We are waiting to get some official numbers so we can look. We've tried to run some various scenarios to try to anticipate, and those are so far apart that we really can't have a handle on it yet.
And the state is the one who decides the fine anyway.
That is correct. The state determines that.
I say fine, but it's not really a fine, is it?
It's not a fine in terms of we pay them.
Right.
As most people know, we receive money from the state. We don't get it all at one time. It's almost like when you're building a house. When you get to certain stages of the construction of the house, you get more money from the bank. We do the same thing in education. And so what happens is we are allotted a certain amount of money, and if we don't meet class size, they will actually withhold some of the allotment that we were supposed to get.
All right. Explain the process of when we make adjustments to class sizes.
Well, the initial adjustment comes in the summer when we are looking at allocating teachers per school. We are aware of approximately how many classes they have that would directly relate to class size.
Sure.
And so we build a staffing plan so that we can meet class size. We actually have some formulas in the computer that they run. Folks in my office help run those numbers for us, and then we try to staff that number of teachers. In the spring of last year, when that takes place, we plan for class size. We plan to meet class size. That was the purpose, that was one of the goals of this administration. However, as we went further and further into the budgeting process and we realized we were going to have to make some cuts, then we started making adjustments to the number of teachers that we assigned to each school. Thus, that was going to impact the individual school with the class size that they could meet.
10-day count. That's a pretty big
That's a big
marker
one.
too.
That's a big marker regardless of class size. You look at all of the population that shows up going into the school year, you're assuming that X number of students are going to show up at each individual school. And then when that actually takes place, a lot of times that's off. It's
exactly.
not an exact science, as we know. Mr. Burke's office, who is utilizes that information, does a great job. But the 10-day count, after 10 days, the population has stabilized enough that we can see where adjustments need to make. And so we look to see, if this school A has less kids than we had planned for, we might take some teachers from there and move them to school B who had more kids.
And what kind of response do you get from those teachers who are being moved from one school to another?
Well, typically because of the contract, we know that seniority and certification help dictate which teachers are going to be moved. So we try before that 10-day count to notify those schools so that they can begin talking to their teachers, and the ones that are going to be affected have a little bit of an idea, so that when we finally make the decision, they understand that they may have to be shifted to another school. Fortunately, we did not hire to the point where we had to actually cut teachers at that point. Everybody who had been hired maintained their job. It's just the job may have been shifted to another site.
I think we were pretty cautious in that whole process so as not to get ourselves in that situation.
Exactly right. We tried to be conservative when we were making our estimates for that very reason.
What about parents? What kind of response do they have? Most of them, I think, are not affected by this, but occasionally you have teachers who have been here and there and now they're changing from wherever to wherever, and parents are emotionally attached to their kids' teachers.
As they should be. That's their prime interest in this whole situation. So when students their teachers have to be changed, or their schedule has to change because we've moved some teachers, that can be very emotional. Many times a student will become attached very quickly to a teacher. So even within 10 days, they've established a relationship, they are used to the workings of the class, they understand the routines, and so when you have to change that, that's a concern. I, as mom and dad, my child comes home and says, "Oh my gosh, they've changed my whole schedule around."
Again.
Again. Yeah. And so naturally they have concerns. We try to assure them. I've been in this business for a long time, and kids actually do better with it than adults do. And we tell them, you know what, by the end of the grading period, I'll bet you any amount of money that they'll be okay. Yeah. But if not, give me a call at the end of the grading period. Rarely do I get a call. Sure. And if someone's really in a bad situation, the schools do a pretty good job of trying to meet those needs.
Give us an idea of what classes are required for class size amendment and what classes are not impacted by that.
Sure. Elementary schools, all of the regular classrooms, K through 5, are all determined by class size. Some of the art, music, PE, resource classes, those would not necessarily be accountable to that. Once you get to secondary, at the middle school and high school, it is primarily the core classes, which include English, math, science, social studies. Used to be involved with foreign language, but they have actually backed off of that. So those 4 main classes: English, math, science, and social studies.
Mr. Lankford, how do you think class size has changed over the years versus when voters originally approved it? In other words, is it still purely about class size?
You know, the theory behind it surely is. I've always believed that it's the teacher in front. If the teacher knows what they're doing, they can teach a class of 20, a class of 30. You could even put teachers in a class of 40, and they could do a great job at teaching and making sure that learning is taking place. I don't think voters really realize some of the impact, some of the ramifications of class size. If you've got a school with 100 teachers, you're paying them a certain amount of money. If you've now got to increase that to 110, 120 teachers because you're going to put less students in a class,
that's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money. And so I think throughout the state, that's been a big eye-opener.
Speaking of money, so far the state has provided nearly $25 billion, that's statewide, for class size. Do you think that funding will continue, or are we maxed out when it comes to what the state provides?
That's a worry. We have a lot of mandates. You've heard a lot of people in education talk about the unfunded mandate. So there's a mandate from the state or from the feds, and but there's no money to go along with that. So that's a concern because we don't seem to be having less mandates, but obviously we have concerns in terms of revenue. So we will have to continue. I think the funding we get for class size is going to have to be there to some degree, because if it's not,
then we're going in the opposite direction.
We'd have to go in the other way.
Yeah. Nothing's easy, is it?
It is not easy, but it's we're always up to the challenge, and our system does a great job with that.
Yeah. Last question for you. What do you think parents misunderstand or don't understand at all when it comes to class size?
I think they equate class size with learning that takes place. As I said, it involves the teacher and the students, and that relationship is huge. And so to think that there's going to be better teaching just because the classes are lower, I think is a fallacy. I think most of us can remember classes that we had in school, and there was that teacher that we happened to really bond with, regardless of how many kids were in the class. Sure, we'd like to have 5, 10, 15, 20 kids in every class because there's a better chance of that bond being formed. But that's not necessarily the way it always happens.
Words from Deputy Superintendent Rick Lankford. We appreciate you being with us today.
Pleasure is all mine.
All right, but before you leave now, I have to say we do have one other topic that we want to talk to you about, just a couple of seconds here, but we have some video that we want you to look at first. Let's take a look at that.
Okay.
Well, I recognize the gentleman on the left. That's our superintendent. The gentleman on the right, Batman, sure looks a lot like you, Mr. Lankford.
The profile's pretty similar, isn't it?
Well, they were looking straight on too.
And you know, they asked me if I would help out a little bit. I wasn't exactly sure how it helped, but fortunately, the costume did show off my pecs. You know, I work out on a regular basis, and so I was glad that was the case.
We should share with viewers that is a role that you played along with Superintendent Tomyn. You were someone's hero that day for the United Way campaign, and you and the superintendent were trying to inspire our school leaders to inspire their respective school communities to raise funds to benefit the United Way, which benefits students right here in Marion County.
Absolutely. We can all be heroes, and so I don't mind making a spoof of myself to encourage people to be a hero also.
Well, you're a good sport about it. We appreciate it. And I'm going to let you get back to the Bat Cave, to your office now.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
A lot. Well, you may call it Pathways to Prosperity, and it sounds like a great classroom slogan, but it's actually a program at Dunnellon High School exposing juniors to potential careers right here in Marion County. The first field trip focused on manufacturing and took place on National Manufacturing Day last month. Joe Hartley tagged along as students toured Winco, a local company that makes medical furniture.
We're facilitating the Florida Advanced Technological Education Group and supporting our local businesses to encourage our young people out there to participate and get involved in their future and help Marion County grow.
We often hear about how there are so few good jobs in Marion County. But the juniors in the Pathways to Prosperity program at Dunnellon High had their eyes opened during a trip to a couple of local manufacturers, including Winco.
It was about finding local jobs in our community that you don't necessarily have to have a college degree to have. So that's kind of nice to know that there's places in town that you don't have to leave your family to get a nice job. So like no one chair that comes from here is exactly alike as another.
The students toured Winco's manufacturing plant near the airport, learning about the company's medical furnishings and how they're made.
I didn't know that we shipped to like all different sides of the country and that everything was like handmade. I didn't know any of that, so it's kind of interesting to know.
Well, it's important for them to come in and get a grasp of what good manufacturing practices are, how everyday life can be a benefit not only to themselves but the customer, the end user, and how we provide a service and product out there for people in need of it.
By touring the facility, the students got a better idea of what the manufacturing business is like. which could either encourage or discourage them from pursuing it after high school.
It's very good that we are exposing our younger generation to these opportunities, and to truly sit back and reflect and go, is that something I really want to do? And if it is something they really want to do, we can give them the avenue and the tools to put in their toolbox so they can get there.
Goodman stressed the idea, if you do something you enjoy, you'll never work a day in your life.
You spend more time with your coworkers and at work than you do awake with your family and friends. So pick a career that's going to be enjoyable and something that's going to keep you passionate about life.
Mr. Goodman, he said create value for life, for your life. So by picking out a job that you really enjoy, that you're going to do for mostly the rest of your life, is something that you really want to have like a good understanding about, and you want to love it. So I think understanding exactly what you're going to do and have hands-on experience before you actually have to do it really gives you an inside detail on like what you want to do with the rest of your life.
We want them to encourage and pick a job that's going to be beneficial not only to them but the organization as well. And it's all about attitude and energy.
This month, students head to a local farm and restaurant to learn more about agriculture and culinary careers, and we're going to bring that field trip to you right here next month. In October, we showed you the Upstart TV program at Emerald Shores Elementary, which won Best of Show with its very first entry in the Marion County Student Media Festival. Now, in part 2 of our series, we head cross county to Dunnellon Middle School, whose TV production program is a perennial powerhouse, not just here, but throughout Florida. Once again, here's Joel Hartley.
The Dunnellon Middle School TV production room is usually organized chaos. There's a group of students in the studio preparing for the morning show.
Today, October 25th, and it's Flip Side Friday.
Another group is at a computer editing.
This is one of those subjects where you either hate it and you just drag to get the class.
A third group is working on a stop-motion animation video for competition.
You get it on? Yeah, Aaron and Cameron helped.
And yet another group is getting ready to head across campus with hundreds of dollars worth of equipment. One teacher can't possibly supervise all this, but Beth Wood doesn't have to.
I sign off on every student that's in here. I've had them in class before. They've earned my trust, and they know that if they lose my trust, they'll never walk out of the classroom again with the camera. And I think that's incentive for them to always be on their best behavior.
Being in this class, she has to see something in you, and you have to be really good because she trusts you to do something and not always keep an eye on you. So you have to be really good and responsible to do this.
For a 13-year-old to have an adult's trust is a lesson in itself.
Absolutely. I mean, just that maturity and having someone trust you and not treating you like a baby kid, like treating you like a professional. You know, that's the way they do it in professional, you know, and professionally. Having that ability to, you know, go out and do things and not stay in the classroom. They have the skills and they have the discipline to do what they need to do.
It's a really good feeling, you know, to have someone who trusts you to do all this.
Some of the equipment the students use is much older than they are, pushing 20 years in some cases, and not always reliable.
I can't fix anything. I'm a TV host, former TV host teacher. I'm not a broadcast engineer, so I can wiggle the wires and, you know, I can give it a little push and you know, if I can't fix it with duct tape and hot glue, then, you know, a lot of times I don't know what to do. Since the beginning, it's always been, it's not what you got, it's what you do with what you got. And if you can't beat them in razzle-dazzle technology, then you've got to beat them in your storytelling and your script writing and do the best with what you have.
That behind-the-scenes work is one student's favorite part.
The making of like the videos, like the planning it takes, like, yeah, the product is always great, but always like the journey to get there is what's the most fun.
Well, the product she and her classmates made last year led to a journey for her this summer.
We made a video for the Humans in Space Youth Art Competition, and we had won first place over on our category. So one of us got to be the representative to go to represent the video in Cologne, Germany, and that happened to be me.
Mission control to John Glenn. John Glenn, can you read me? Over.
Roger that. Mission control, I read you.
The theme was to answer the question of how has technology affected space travel and how it will affect it in the future. So we did it like in a past, present, and future format to answer the question. Technology has taken us to the edge of our solar system and beyond, stepping stones on man's journey through our universe.
That kind of success, not to mention the dozens of trophies scattered around the room, is a real motivator to do their best.
Oh, kids come in on fire. They want to be in here, for the most part. I mean, there's a few that really don't care, but most of them really want to create something that they're going to be proud of, something that they'll be able to watch over and over in the future, and it's fun to see them want to accomplish something.
Next month, in Part 3, we'll see how Bellevue High School's TV production program has grown and even branched out to impact other schools right here in our own school district. Well, here's a fun story for you. Yo-yos, spinning tops, and gyroscopes. They've been around for decades, but there's a science to these toys that Anthony Elementary students are learning about thanks to a world-renowned yo-yo champion. Chadwick Pierce has the story for us.
Jennifer Baybrook became a professional yo-yo player at the age of 8. And now she is bringing that talent and knowledge of things that spin to the students of Anthony Elementary.
Today I came to the school to do not only a yo-yo show, but also teach the kids about the science of spin. So I brought a number of objects with me, including yo-yos, spin tops, footballs, frisbees, Diablos, and even a bicycle wheel. All things that teach the kids simple concepts like gyroscopic stability, rotational inertia, spinning energy, as I like to call it, planes of spin, mass distribution, air resistance, and drag.
Anthony Elementary is incorporating programs like these this year because they are on a mission.
Everything we do is focused on learning, so when we have presentations, I always try to make sure that the presenter has some kind of academic focus that ties in with the presentation. So for today's presentation, there was a science focus.
One more time, what is this? Horizontal, vertical, diagonal. Good job.
That science focus mixed with a physical education component is the perfect storm. But there is an expectation for learning while having some fun from these types of demonstrations.
From the presentation today, what I really hope is that our students in 3rd, 4th, and 5th are going to have a better understanding of that gyroscopic stability, of understanding the differences in kinetic energy and potential energy and how different items spin, the mass distribution in items in order to make them spin longer or faster, things like that, concepts like that, and so that they'll be able to make connections in the classroom when they are learning about these types of topics in their textbook.
One 5th grader got blown away by what she learned.
I learned that when she did the different forces and stuff, I learned that like the frisbee was more than the thin one that she had, but then I learned that the thinner it is, it can go through different objects and stuff.
Jennifer enjoys performing her tricks and teaching students to have fun while learning. But she also has a message for the kids about the ups and downs of life.
I certainly have had a number of challenges over the years. I come from a small family in Vermont who struggled, to put food on the table. And because I practiced at something and worked hard, I was able to not only put myself through college on scholarships that I received by winning yo-yo competitions, I also was able to travel around the world and see so many places that I would have never been exposed to just because I worked hard at something.
The school plans to continue the Science of Yo-Yo idea with hands-on clinics during physical education classes. And speaking of PE, coaches constantly motivate their athletes during competition, sometimes with a soft pat on the back and sometimes with a swift kick. Well, you can finish that line. Cross-country runners, however, have to motivate themselves because the coach only motivates until the race is on. Joel Hartley recently stopped by Dunnellon High School to speak with cross-country team members to learn how and why they do it.
It's something I was born to do. I just love doing it. I'm good at it. I know I'm good at it. I like doing it.
Lucas King must like running because his training schedule resembles the unofficial mailman motto. Neither rain nor heat nor cold will keep him from running every day, roughly 20 miles a week.
Running's running, the weather ain't gonna change nothing. Why should I? it's going to be rainy one day, it's going to be hot, it's going to be cold another day. You know, just got to keep on running. Can't stop.
But why do it?
Just the feeling of it, you know, I just like the freedom of running. It just gets me thinking and gets my mind free and all that stuff.
And when you're running 2, 3, 4 miles a day every day, what do you think about?
Determination, just basically yeah, I do think, but I just don't think sometimes too, but it's just determination, you know? Just get better every time.
Dig! 18-19.
That determination, that push, has to come from the runner himself because, unlike other sports, there's no coach on the sideline to push him.
Absolutely. They have to have it. And if they don't show that heart, they'll get passed in a race. So I mean, you could say, hey, all right, you don't want to practice hard? Well, 30 kids are going to run right on by you. So at the end, they see what the hard work, you know, does for them.
It also helps to be a bit adventurous. Football, baseball, and basketball players all know the size and shape of their venues. The gridiron is always a 100-yard rectangle. The bases always form a 90 by 90 diamond, and the rims are always 10 feet high. Cross country is always 5 kilometers, but everything else is variable.
It really is extremely challenging to run a 3.1 race and give it your all. You know, it takes a lot of stamina, it takes a lot of determination. There's a lot of variables out there. You're trying to get around kids. They're blocking you off. You never know what terrain you're going to run on until you get on the course. It's a mystery run. So every race is different. So there's so much unknown that it's just a lot of fun to see what you're made of, to see what you can do.
Her runners improved their individual times every time out this year, and that's all a coach can ask for.
I'm so proud of them because they just have so much heart. Because like, I'm not out there with them right now. They're running. I know they're running. I'm not monitoring them. I don't have to monitor. They really want to run.
There's a good chance we'll see some of those young runners in the Reindeer Run next month. That's the 5K run that happens on East Silver Springs Boulevard in Ocala just before the annual Christmas parade kickoff. And speaking of that, you can catch this year's parade live right here on the Marian Education Channel. That broadcast happens Saturday evening, December 14th, starting at 5:30 p.m. In an effort to share more information and engage our community, here's Mr. George Tomyn with this month's Superintendent Spotlight.
I'm here today at Reddick Collier Elementary School. Reddick Elementary is located in the north part of Marion County and houses about 400 of our students from the North Marion County area. I was invited to come to Reddick Collier today to participate in and to listen to a fantastic program sponsored by their music teacher here on patriotism. We had veterans in the audience, we had the children singing, we had a ton of parents here, and a special thanks for all of them for coming up. The newspaper was here to report on the fantastic program, and I look forward to hearing more about this later. One special thing happened to me at the end of the program when a grandparent came up to me and said, if you have things like this going on in Marion County, you have a great school system. Well, my head just swelled with pride because I know that we do have fantastic things going on. Hats off to the Reddick Collier Elementary administration and staff for putting on this program. A special thanks to the music teacher here for coordinating this event. It was truly a fantastic, patriotic event. And while I'm talking about patriotism, I would like to remind everyone about our November 11th Veterans Day celebration at the Veterans Park in Ocala. If you have an opportunity to attend this morning program that begins about 10 o'clock in the morning, I hope you have the opportunity to come. Our children participate in this, our veterans participate in this, and it is an absolutely wonderful program. Thank you.
And we wrap up today's show at this point. We thank you for watching. We also hope to see you here again next month for another Classroom Connection. Meantime, parents, this reminder, remember to be there for your child every day.